Welcome back to Elmira College and our debate between the two candidates running for Congress in the 29th Congressional District. Our next question is from Dr. Stephen Coleman, and it will go to Mr. Reed.
Nationally, unemployment has been over 9.5% for 14 consecutive months. Your solution?
Yeah, I think, Dr. Coleman, and it's always Tom, please. What we have to realize is that the government itself cannot create jobs. What the government can do is create an environment upon which jobs can be created. You know, in the time that we've spent on the campaign, and it's been a lot of time and a lot of miles, we've talked to a lot of small business owners and a lot of CEOs of large companies and small companies. One of the things that concerns them most right now is they are dealing with a lot of uncertainty in the private market. They see Obamacare coming down with 2,500 pages of legislation, 4,000 pages of regulation. They see issues such as cap and trade being put on the table that concerns them greatly, which would drive up our energy costs. And there's a lot of uncertainty, and they're standing on the sidelines because they don't know the policies that are coming down and how far the government's going to go. They don't even know what their tax rates are going to be next year. What we have to do is we have to stabilize that economic area. What we have to do is make sure that we send a philosophy when we come to the polls on November 2nd that we're going to recognize that the private sector needs to be regulated and there needs to be stiff enforcement for those individuals that engage in fraud or those corporations that engage in fraud or violate the rules. We need to arrest them and hold them accountable. But essentially, government is going to let the private sector be unleashed.
Again, Tom gave you a political answer, which shows you a great example of how good of a politician he is, but no solution. So here's my solution. Clean energy is going to be the industrial revolution of the 21st century, and we have to be at the forefront of it. Now, our district is uniquely suited to do this. We have a diverse climate, which means when it comes time to testing products, for example, energy efficient siding, windows, roofing, insulation, we can do that here because our summers are hot and humid and our winters are, as you all know, very cold and harsh. We also have the ability to go out and develop biofuels. In Steuben County alone, we have over 80,000 acres of dormant farmland that if we were to grow switchgrass on, we could make a cellulose-based ethanol that would be worth around $2 to $3 billion a year just in Steuben County alone. We've also got to recognize that we could be involved in creating the best batteries on the planet, the most energy efficient wiring. My point of this is that if you look at what the world is demanding, and you recognize that the only way to get Americans back to work is to, one, stop the outsourcing, and two, start making things that the world wants to buy from us again, you have to look at what they're demanding, and it's clean energy. China is going to currently spend 5 times more on clean energy development over the next 5 years than they will on defense. They have 2 billion people who live there. If we can sell them their most energy efficient window, we're talking about sustained employment for generations.
And each one of those proposals comes out of the private sector. And I'm firmly committed to a national energy policy that puts an all of the above approach to solving it, which would have the secondary benefit of putting people back to work. Right here in our backyard, we have the Marcellus Shale Formation. People are very familiar with it. And we will, I'm sure, discuss that later. But when you go to the northern tier of Pennsylvania, you see a lot of economic development. And you see a lot of people going back to work. That's an opportunity that, to me, should be developed responsibly and safely, but we should have a positive attitude to move forward with it.
Joe Dunn.
Well, since you brought up Marcellus Shale, we'll discuss it right now. Marcellus Shale has become a huge issue locally for both the potential environmental and economic impacts. What's your stand on studying the issue, deciding the issue, and the role, if any, of the federal government?
Sure. My stance is this is simple. Currently below our feet, there's anywhere from 2 to 14 years of total domestic supply of natural gas that's worth anywhere between $2 and $34 trillion. I have yet to hear an adequate engineering solution that allows us to access it safely. See, we have a wonderful example in Pennsylvania of what not to do. Pennsylvania has had unregulated drilling since 2005. And as recently as this October, they found that there were over 1,000 instances of potential problems with the drilling. Instances in which the gas drilling companies had violated the environmental laws of Pennsylvania, had somehow damaged the infrastructure. And what I've learned from traveling out our district is that I don't think our roads are ready for this yet. I don't think we've had the adequate study that's necessary to really figure out if the water is going to be poisoned. You see, when they do hydrofracking, they drop things in the ground such as strontium-90, barium, hydrochloric acid. All of these things can kill you. And if you think I'm kind of talking out of my left side of my brain, or maybe I'm making this up, I encourage you to go visit the parts of northern Pennsylvania where Tom is going to. You'll find one that people working down there are not from Pennsylvania, they're from Texas. Until you'll find that most of the folks down there can light their tap water on fire. You also find that they can't sell their homes. Pennsylvania found that a home that has its water source damaged by methane or contaminated with methane loses 75% of its land value. So my position is simple. When we do it, it's going to be safe, but I have yet to hear the engineering solution that allows us to do that.
I think our position on it's been well established. We are a proponent of Marcellus Shale natural gas exploration. We are a proponent so long as it's done safely and reliably. And I think the DEC has taken the right approach on it. They've taken the time out, they've adopted the moratorium, they've been looking at the issue for 2 years, and they're starting to come out with some findings. And some of those draft findings have stated that the concern about the contamination to our groundwater supply is not reasonably foreseeable, I believe is the language in the environmental impact statement, the draft environmental impact statement that they're working off of. To me, what we have to do is make sure that we always focus on science and data. We don't want to be engaged in a practice of fear mongering. We want to rely on the science and data, go out, do the right study, complete the study, and I think we're at that point where we can start making decisions and moving forward with it. And I support it not only for the economic development potential that it has here in our backyard, but also from the big picture. You know, we're running for federal office. So one of the issues that I'm greatly concerned about is our national security. And we have a foreign energy dependency problem that needs to be addressed. I'm not saying Marcellus Shale is going to cure that problem, but it's a step in the right direction. Because we have one of the world's largest supply of natural gas under our feet, and that could go a long way to getting us off foreign oil and other foreign energy supplies.
With all due respect, Tom, you say that you want to go to the science and data, yet the science and data is coming from the gas drilling companies that told you to say that. See, he's taken over $30,000 from people like Chesapeake. Now, if you actually look at the science and data, I brought the Pennsylvania report if you'd like to read it. You'll see that there are 1,614 instances in which the well waters have either had contamination, the fracking fluid has gotten into the aquifer, the roads have been damaged. My point is that science is telling us that this is not yet safe to do so. And remember, these are the same industry that said drilling in the Gulf, BP, was not going to have a problem. There was an explosion in Pennsylvania. It was the same valve that exploded in the Gulf.
You have the last word on that subject. Sean Carroll has the next question.
This was emailed in to us. It's from Edith, and I'm going to adapt it a little bit, but she certainly touches on an issue that's making way too many headlines, and that's the issue of bullying online, bullying, and other crimes existing and starting right here on the internet. Is this an area that the government should begin to regulate, create laws to perhaps prosecute? Where does the government step in if they do it all? I believe this goes to Mr. Reed, right?
Okay. Well, I think first we have to go back to our position on the role of the federal government. I'm a firm believer in the 9th and 10th Amendments of the United States Constitution. What that means is that we have a limited federal government and we defer to the states and the local government whenever possible. And that's the presumption under the Constitution. And in this situation, what I think should occur is that this is an issue best suited for the local boards of education, for the local teachers, to deal with it head on. To have a federal bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. try to adopt legislation and regulations that's going to take care of the situation in a school in the city of Corning, to me, is not the correct philosophy or procedure to adopt. I believe that our local boards, I believe that our local teachers are best suited to deal with the unique situations that occur in their classrooms, and I'm a strong proponent of deferring these issues to the local and state level.
I think there's a case to be made that the government should get involved if the bullying is being conducted by a parent. Many of the examples you're talking about are actually parents who are bullying one of their child's playmates on that child's behalf. I think that's illegal. It's an adult picking on a minor. And I think there is a role for governments there to protect the safety and security of that child that's being bullied. I think this is actually ultimately an issue for parents and for teachers. I would encourage people to not let your kids bully others and to be involved in their lives. But this gets to a broader issue. there's a lot of parents out there who might not necessarily this is going on because of your policies of outsourcing their good paying job that allowed them to work one job, they're now working 2 or 3 and they're not there when that child gets home from school. They're not there to make sure that they're doing their homework. They're not there to actually parent their kid because they're too busy trying to make a day's labor off of 3 different jobs just to be able to feed their family because your policies, which you support, sent that job to China.
Well, I'll take the 30 seconds to go back to an issue on Marcellus Shale, because I think we've addressed the issue of bullying.
Actually, no, I'll just quickly interrupt both of you, real quick. Federal government, no regulations when it comes to internet behavior. Yes or no?
Internet behavior or school behavior?
Internet behavior as it pertains to bullying and things of that sort.
Now, internet behavior gets into interstate commerce issues, so there's a role for federal government to be involved in regulation of the internet. But when we're talking about educational forums, I prefer to the states.
I agree with Tom. I don't think the federal government has a role to play unless it's an interstate commerce issue. There's probably a free speech issue at that as well if it's, 2 kids talking to one another.